When European powers colonized Africa in the late 1800s, their goal wasn't to develop the continent. It was to extract its wealth. These resources were taken out of Africa and poured into Europe. But here's the catch. Almost none of that wealth stayed behind to build schools, roads, or hospitals. Even the borders that were drawn, completely random, they grouped people from different ethnic backgrounds into one country, which caused a lot of tension later. So, when African nations finally gained independence in the mid-1900s, they were left with broken systems, divided societies, and weak institutions. That's a tough starting point. Many African governments, deep in debt and short on cash, turned to the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank for help. These organizations gave loans, but with strings attached, big strings. Countries had to follow something called Structural Adjustment Policies, or SAPS. Sounds technical, but here's what it meant in real life. Cut spending on public services, like schools and hospitals. Sell off government-run businesses. Open up markets to foreign imports. Sounds like a fix, right? But in practice, these policies hit ordinary people hard. Healthcare became unaffordable. Local businesses couldn't compete with cheap imports. And the economy, it didn't grow the way it was promised to, still being exploited. Now, let's look at today. Even now, many African countries still rely heavily on exporting raw materials. They are not making the finished products, just the raw goods. So, instead of selling chocolate, they sell cocoa beans. Instead of selling smartphones, they export rare earth metals. And guess who's making most of the money? Not the African producers, not the local workers. It's the foreign companies who refine, package, and sell the final products to the world. In some countries, politics has become more about power than people. Corruption, lack of accountability, and political instability slow everything down. It also scares away investors who might have brought jobs and industries to local communities. Conflict and insecurity, like those in the Sahel, the Horn of Africa, or parts of the DRC, have caused chaos. When people are forced to flee, when farms and schools are destroyed, when resources go into war instead of development, poverty rises. Peace is not just a political goal, it's an economic necessity. Climate change is real. Africa contributes the least to global carbon emissions, yet it's facing some of the harshest climate impacts. Floods, droughts, and desertification are making it harder for farmers to grow food. And when agriculture fails, so do families, economies, and food security. Africa is the youngest continent in the world. That's a big opportunity, but also a big challenge. Millions of young people are entering the job market every year. But are there enough jobs? Are the schools preparing them well? If not, frustration builds, and so does poverty. The debt trap. Lastly, let's not forget debt. Many African countries are once again buried in loans, some from the West, others from places like China. Debt isn't always bad, but when you're spending more paying interest than building hospitals or hiring teachers, that's a red flag. So to answer the big question, why is there so much poverty in Africa despite all its resources? It's not because Africa lacks potential. It's not because Africans aren't hardworking. It's because of a long chain of history, from colonial greed to modern-day exploitation. Many African countries are pushing for reforms, investing in youth, embracing technology, and demanding fair trade. The story isn't over. It's just getting started. Thanks for watching.